Protest, the act of objecting and a gesture of disapproval. The influence of protest in speaking your mind has had an immense effect on society and not conforming to unjust behavior. The effects of the Vietnam War had an extensive impact on protests being more prevalent overall due to the greater awareness and more socially conscious society. From sports to music, you can see how their public objections to inequality created change that goes towards the world's politics of music and sports today. Born Cassius Clay until he converted faith into the Nation of Islam, Muhammad Ali is widely known as not only one of the greatest athletes of all time, but also one of the most vocal. On April 28, 1967, Muhammad Ali refused to be inducted into the army to go to Vietnam due to the racial injustices that were prevalent at the time. Muhammad Ali's outlandish character and trash-talking composure was a major component to his boxing status and popularity. But when Muhammad Ali made this statement and refused to go to the war, he not only became a major figure to the black nationalist community, he became an icon towards the anti-war movement. Although he received praise from major leaders and sports writers such as Martin Luther King and Jerry Eisenberg, his words didn't come without major repercussions. Ali became a national pariah. He hated by many and struggling with financial debt after being banned from boxing for multiple years, having to compensate for that by participating in hundreds of college campus speeches. But as time moved on, approval for the Vietnam War began to decline, and more people started to have a similar viewpoint to Ali. In the month of 1971, in June, Ali's conviction became overturned by the Supreme Court, and in October 26, 1970, Ali returned to the ring in Atlanta, Georgia. In the 1968 Summer Games in Mexico City, tensions were high. Civil rights for African Americans was very relevant, and ideas of boycott were spewing by the Los Angeles Black Youth Conference. But when the concept of boycotting the Olympics never fell through, athletes used other methods in order to speak their mind. Tommy Smith and John Carlos were prime examples. Both being students at San Jose University under sociologist Harry Edwards, Smith and Carlos took part in one of the most polarizing moments in sports history. After receiving their awards in the 200-meter running event, with Smith getting gold and Carlos getting bronze respectively, they stood atop the medal podium during the Star Spangled Banner event and performed a black power salute that shook the world. Black gloves and black socks represented black America, with unzipped jackets representing blue collar African American workers, no shoes to symbolize black poverty, and beads representing the issue of lynching in the United States. Smith and Carlos became vilified by the Olympic Committee, especially from International Olympic Committee President Avery Brundage, who believed in sports being a politics free zone. They were suspended from the U.S. team as well as receiving death threats for their acts. But even through all the scrutiny, neither of them apologized for their actions, and for that, they turned from villains to heroes in the coming future. Seen as brave and courageous for their stand against black injustices, Carlos and Smith received the Arthur Ashe Courage Award in the 2008 ESPYs, as well as having a salute statue dedicated to them in San Jose, California. Very well deserved. Pre-Vietnam War era, Marvin Gaye was known for his work as a Motown musician, but as the problems in Vietnam progressed, Marvin Gaye began writing songs about the Vietnam War in his album What's Going On to protest the war. In 1970, Marvin Gaye's brother Frankie Gaye went off to the war and served as a radio jockey and finally returned back home in 1971. During those series of events, Gaye was inspired to write the album What's Going On, and in the album, Gaye specifically relates to his brother and writes What's Happening Brother, which is one of the 9 songs on the album, which directly tells the story of a soldier readjusting to life back home upon returning from the war. Although What's Happening Brother is regarded as one of the best songs in this album, the one song that inspired the name for the album, What's Going On, is preached for peace and harmony not only in Vietnam but also at home in the USA. Gaye's album helped fuel the peace movement and are still admired today. Today you can see Gaye's influence on society in Motown Museum, where he has a large display of what he accomplished as a musician. One of the most iconic songwriters of all time, Bob Dylan, is known for his work in writing protest music. In fact, Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature this past year for his past and present work as a songwriter. Dylan can most notably be known for his work during the 60s and 70s for speaking out against the injustices of that time. Some of the most memorable of those songs include The Times They Are Changin', Blown in the Wind, and All Along the Watchtower. In each of these songs, Dylan preaches peace and questions authority. His influence reaches so far out that other artists have done covers of his songs. Probably the most notable one is All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. Dylan's vast influence through this era has showed others how music can shape those who listen and who appreciate it. On May 4th, 1970, students at Kent State were protesting the Vietnam War when Ohio National Guard opened fire and killed 4 students. Upon seeing pictures from the shooting in a magazine, Young began writing the lyrics to the song Ohio. Tin Soldiers and Nixon Coming refers to the Kent State shootings where an Ohio National Guardsman shot and killed 4 students. Some radio stations banned playing this song because it was against the Nixon administration. This song was rumored to be played constantly on the underground radio stations. Ohio ended up making it into the top 20 upon its release, getting word out of the injustice of what happened in Ohio. Monterey and Woodstock were both festivals that were supposed to protest the Vietnam War with their music. The people at the festivals thought that peace and harmonious living was possible. People who went to Woodstock called themselves member of the Woodstock generation because Woodstock was the place where the counterculture movement really hit its peak. Kendrick Lamar's song, All Right, supports the African American community. Some people even claim that the song became a chant for the Black Lives Matter protesting. For writing the song, Kendrick is considered to be one of the leaders for the African American community. Also, lots of people want the song to be the black national anthem.
Do you feel music or athletics should play a part in helping create a more socially conscious society?
I think music in particular should. I think especially young people listen to a lot of music and they kind of internalize some of the messages coming from their music. And so I think in that sense that artists do need to be kind of conscious of what effect they're having on their audience.
Have you ever protested? If so, what was the reason for your protest?
I've protested twice. So the first one I went to was for the Flint water crisis, and that was actually through the Black Students Union here. So that was the first one I went to, and then the second was for Trump's immigration, and that was at the airport.
I've never had the chance to protest, but if conditions were met, I would definitely protest. But I really had nothing that has made me want to protest yet. We'll see.
Cut. Have you ever protested? If so, what was the reason for your protest?
I've protested twice. So the first one I went to was for the Flint water crisis, and that was actually through the Black Students Union here. So that was the first one I went to, and then the second was for Trump's immigration, and that was at the airport.
I've never had the chance to protest, but if conditions were met, I would definitely protest. But I really had nothing that has made me want to protest yet. We'll see.
Cut.